Hello, and welcome to Feel with Purpose. My name is Olga.
And I'm Mary.
Today, we're going to be talking about attachment styles. So there are 4 attachment styles. There's the secure attachment style, anxious, avoidant, and disorganized. And we're going to go into each one of those and talk a little bit about them, give some examples, and see if you can figure out which one you might be. And eventually, we'll definitely do a segment on how to reach secure attachment style because that is the preferred one. You want to kick us off?
Yep. So the first one is secure attachment, right? So what is it? Secure attachment is when you are comfortable with intimacy and independence. You know, you are able to be vulnerable and open with your partner, and you kind of have the anticipation that they will also meet that energy, right? So you just feel like you can open up and be vulnerable and talk things through.
Absolutely. Which is the one you want to shoot for.
Exactly.
The next one, I think we should maybe run through them real quick just to give everybody a definition of what each one of those looks like. And then we can kind of go into some examples and into more detail. The next one is going to be the anxious attachment style, where you're not very trusting. You're more likely scared of intimacy, or you're scared of something happening or someone hurting you. So you're more generally nervous about interactions with people.
Yeah. Exactly. So, which is very common, actually.
Yes, it is indeed, for sure.
And the next one is avoidant attachment, right? So you crave that independence. You don't really do relationships much. You know, you kind of avoid that closeness with people. You got this like wall up, I feel like. So that's that one.
Yep, absolutely. And then the last one is disorganized, where it's a combination of both. It's a combination of anxious attachment style and avoidant. And what I didn't mention earlier with anxious attachment is that when you do get into a relationship, you become very clingy. You are scared of them leaving, or you're always nervous of whether they're going to go somewhere and not give you your attention or the things that you crave, or perhaps they won't be able to give you your needs. So you become more panicked around the whole relationship. And that's where a lot of the bad types of codependency start to come into play. So I wanted to give that little tidbit on the other side of anxious style. But disorganized style is when you have a little bit of both. You are avoidant and anxious, meaning that you generally are going to stay away from relationships. But if you do get into one, then you start displaying those anxious type of relationship styles.
Yeah.
And often you'll get somebody who kind of does a little bit of both, and you don't know what to expect from them because they might be distant and avoidant from you in the beginning. And then they're going to be really close to you and really clingy and maybe love bomb you a little bit and give you all of those. And then again, they're going to push back and run away, right? So it's this tug of war between the two. And
the push and pull concept.
Thank you.
Right?
That's the words I was looking for. So it's a little bit more chaotic in that nature, but those are the 4.
Yeah. So think on which one you might be, and we'll try to explain them in more depth.
Right. And so I think about kind of self-reflection. Now I feel like I have secure attachment. I did not have secure attachment before, which took some time to get to. But ultimately, secure attachment to me, what does that actually mean? Right. So to me, having a secure attachment means that I'm okay with my husband having his own hobbies and his own activities and things that he goes out and does on his own. I don't, I don't feel the need to be with him all the time, 24/7. I trust him to go about his business. But also I love intimacy. You know, I love when we do have moments together. I depend on him for things. He depends on me for other things.
That closeness.
Right. You know, and especially, I mean, we'll get into love languages on another episode, but briefly, I enjoy physical touch. I enjoy being around him. There isn't that panickiness that, oh, is he going to leave me? I don't feel that with him, but that also took a lot of work to be able to figure out who were you before? Why was it not working? Or a person you're with, and why is that not working? What's going on with them? So it's really important to really just, even if you're one of them and you might be a secure attachment person, you need to know what the other ones are.
Right.
Because you may be in a relationship with somebody who's actively showing you their attachment style. What about you? Where do you think you fall into place?
I think same as you. Currently, I think it's secure. But before, I almost want to say, I don't know. I think it was a combination.
Yeah, for sure.
anxious and avoidant. Because, yeah, I mean, as you get older, you kind of learn. But being young, I mean, you're very nervous. You're like, what if I do this? They're going to leave me. Or what if I say this and they're going to, leave me, or we're going to have a huge fight or whatever. Like you're just anxious. But then the other side of me was kind of like, whatever. I don't need anybody. Like I'm doing me, So it just depended, I think, for me.
So if somebody were getting close to hurting you, you would shut that down. It'd be like,
yeah, actually, I would break up with people. Honestly.
Well,
I would break up with them. I would beat them to it in a sense.
Right. So before you get a chance to hurt me, I'm cool. I don't need you. I'm by myself. I'm going to go do this independent girl stuff.
Absolutely. But then on the flip side, you break up with somebody and then you kind of run back to them because you're like, oh, I do love them and it was great and whatever. And then it's like, I don't feel like myself or something. Like your confidence kind of goes down a little bit and then you kind of run back to that person. And it's just this whole like kind of exactly what it describes, right? That push and pull.
Absolutely.
So I think it's interesting how that kind of shifts throughout life, right?
Absolutely. And I mean, the way that it plays out too is it's not just intimate partner. I think it's easiest for me to talk about that because I've been with my husband for many years and I've figured this thing out. So it's a little easier for me to talk about the details of that. But it really is with friendships. It is with, I mean, as a therapist, that that relationship in itself is a huge indicator of what their attachment style is like. Whoever your client is in that moment, the way that they interact with you is one way that they display their attachment. And it may be different with you than with the rest of the world, which is fine. But it's also an indicator that there's something there to explore. There's something there to understand. Why do you feel anxious when it comes to love, intimacy, vulnerability? Why do you feel like you need to avoid it? What happened that was so significant in your life to make you choose this type of, well, not choose, I shouldn't say that, but to behave in this way, right? Because ultimately you're just protecting yourself. Either way.
Yeah.
When you're anxious, you're, oh my God, I don't want to get hurt. When you're avoidant is, I'm not willing to even touch it because I know I'm going to get hurt. Right.
Yeah, exactly. It's an interesting kind of concept, but I think a lot of the time, I think people display that anxious attachment in certain spaces, right? Or any one of these, really. I mean, I just want to point out that you don't just have one in all settings.
Yes, true.
Right? I mean, you could be secure in your work. Let's say, you have this role and you're great at it and you feel good and you get that praise from your colleagues and or your bosses or whoever. And then you feel like, okay, yeah, I'm really great at this. Like you feel secure.
Because you're getting validated, right? You may be getting an award or a raise or a promotion or just a good job.
Yeah.
And so you're like, okay, cool, I'm killing it. Everything's okay. I feel good. I'm getting the praise I need. Everything's cool here. I can feel secure because I've gotten all the little things that I needed.
Yes. And then let's say you get home and then you feel anxious attachment or maybe even avoidant, or combination of both of them. So it's kind of like that, I'm secure over here, but not so
This
secure
area
over
is
here.
not so secure.
Exactly.
Right.
So being able to identify in which areas, you guys feel these attachment styles are like across the board.
And I think it's okay to have it to be lean. You don't have to, I'm secure. I'm perfect. I do everything. You can have little hints of things, but it's important to take note of them and to really understand, why am I feeling this way? Why is this interaction, this relationship causing me these type of feelings, to either pull away or to be stressed out and anxious that something isn't going to work? There's more around that. You're not just supposed to feel that all the time.
Exactly. Like it could ebb and flow during certain times. So I think that's important to know. And the other piece, as you were saying earlier, is where does it come from? Where did you kind of learn? Where did you get conditioned to sort of feel these things?
I think primarily the closest interactions you have are with your family, with your parents, with your grandparents, with your siblings, whoever is the predominant guardian within your family. And that could literally be grandparents, parents, or siblings that had
Or
the most
whoever else,
interaction
whatever
with you,
family situation,
whoever you were seeking approval from, love from, whoever your needs were getting met by, whomever your needs were getting met by. At that point, it's most likely that. However, in some situations, you can have a wonderful upbringing and you felt loved and safe, and you got into a relationship where somebody was not, didn't have good intentions for you, or perhaps deceived you and ruined or shifted that ability to trust or be vulnerable. So you may start off with a secure attachment. Everything was amazing. Everything's great. And then an experience with someone, maybe even a best friend who has failed you or disappointed you or set you up or hurt you in some way, to where now you're like, whoa, wait a minute. I can't trust everyone the way that I felt I could before.
Absolutely. And just as I said earlier, like, it's across the board. It could be a coach, it could be a teacher, it could be, I don't know, anybody really. A boss, you know, that you had a negative experience with, maybe over and over again, maybe one time, and then you just kind of have that wall up for yourself.
Right. Absolutely. And I think there's a way to be able to protect yourself without feeling out of control, right? Because the attachment style is when you really don't know what's going on and you just happen to be behaving this way. But when you're aware of what it is, you can start working on the reasons that it's happening, right? So coming back to where it came from, let's say your attachment style is because of an unfortunate upbringing where perhaps a parent was very cold, very distant,
Detached.
very maybe irritable, to the point where you're consistently scanning the environment. You're consistently looking at how to respond, how to react, because if you don't do everything right, then you're not going to get that love. You might get ignored. You might not hear from them for 2 days because they're mad at you, taking away that communication, that love, that affection, that attention. So you're going to in turn have an anxious attachment style because you're always watching out for their feelings. Their feelings are dominating yours. If something's wrong, you're automatically going to panic because that means that they have the power to withhold love from you, which is what you want. Right. And vice versa.
Or the flip side, you decide, you know what? I'm done with this. I'm just going to not react. I'm going to detach. I'm going to disassociate. I'm going to remove myself, not physically, because obviously as children, we really can't do that. Well, in some cases, but you just detach. You're like, I'm done. I'm just going to be, and cut all the emotion out.
Because I don't want love to be used as a weapon against me. I don't want to feel that way again, to where I'm so scared. You might start off with that anxious, right, attachment from the beginning. And then you end up getting avoidant because you realize I can't feel like this in relationships, or relationships keep failing over and over because you keep maybe controlling too much, or, you know, how they say, don't pet the bunny too hard, right? And you realize, wow, time after time, these relationships fail. I feel horrible. I'm not doing this anymore. I'm going to be handling my own life from here on out without having to rely on anyone else.
I don't need anybody.
Correct.
Because if I don't need anybody, if I'm telling myself that, then there's less room for hurt. In a sense.
Absolutely.
Right? So I think it's interesting to kind of break them down and just see like where each of us show up, you know, what areas we can work on and how we feel in certain situations.
And reflect on relationships that are in your life. If you're having a hard time figuring out which category that you may be in, or you realize, wow, some of these kind of fit, but I don't really know which one, I may have a little bit of both. Start exploring the relationships within your life, right? With your significant other, with your friends, with your parents, especially, to be able to see what did I grow up with and what did I see? And if what I saw, is that what I want for myself? And if not, how do I get to a place where I can have a secure attachment to, let's say, my significant other?
Yeah. Or like if you had parents that were avoidant and didn't really show up anywhere and just kind of let you be on your own, you have to recognize those behaviors, and maybe that's how you're acting, right? But then exactly what you're saying is just identify it and just say, I want something different. Because I think a lot of us, most of us, know what's like right and wrong. Maybe you didn't have a great example, you know, growing up, but I think just from observation, you could see like, okay, this is what I would want. This is what I wouldn't want. So being able to identify that and then kind of acting accordingly.
That's right. I would 100% agree with that. And the ultimate piece is you have to realize that there may be things that I'm doing that are incorrect. And I am ready to change. I'm going to say this a million times throughout all of the episodes that we have, because I may be naive for this, but
You're a true believer.
I'm a true believer. I think if you really want something, you can get it. And if what you want is to have healthy relationships, you need to look at yourself and you need to say, what am I doing? How have I been programmed? Also another word I'm going to say a million times. How did I get coded? What did I see? What were my experiences? Do I know how to love somebody? Or do I only know the example that my parents gave and the rom-coms that I see on TV?
Exactly.
What is
Which
that?
half the time aren't even realistic. But,
So do I even have real examples of what love is? Do I need to truly sit down and understand what does it feel like to be loved? What do I want as a part of a relationship from friends or whomever?
Whoever. Yeah, exactly. And then once you identify that, you're able to take action.
You have to self-reflect. And then if you choose to want something better, there is a way to get it.